I think all of us, whether you have your parents living close to home or like us, about 200 miles away, you worry sometimes.
Hmm.
Oh, wait, dad hadn't called lately. I wonder if everything's okay. That type of thing.
And it's nice to be able to know maybe there's a way to be able to keep better tabs on them,
Hmm.
especially maybe if you're busy at work or during the day. So today we are talking to Adam Lack with checkinbee.com. Thanks so much for being with us, Adam.
Thank you for having me.
As Mike mentioned, that a lot of times as the adult child or caring for somebody who is older, you want to know they're okay, but sometimes if you're in the middle of a meeting or have a busy day at work, you might not have the time to actually call them during the day multiple times. And so that's what you sort of found with your father-in-law, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. My father-in-law is in his mid-70s, and he's very independent. He travels a lot. Um, and the reason I started building Check-in Bee really is because we wanted a way to make sure he was okay on his travels, but also he didn't like to be checked in on. He didn't like people fussing about him. So I really wanted to find a solution that worked for both of us. He
Mhm.
could feel independent. We could feel like there was some kind of way of making sure he was okay. So that's kind of where it started, Check-in Bee, yes.
Yeah.
So he was not open to having cameras in his apartment or his home or things like that, where you're really sort of monitoring, or maybe didn't even want multiple phone calls during the day from
Yeah,
y'all.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he didn't want multiple phone calls. He was often traveling, so
Mhm.
being next to a phone all the time was kind of not ideal.
Yeah.
So with Check-in Bee, it works where you've got this time to check in. You don't have to check in immediately. You can kind of do it on your own schedule with an allotted time. So he could do it, but not feel like he had to be next to his phone all day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, even in today's world where everybody has a cell phone with them all the time, I know we've found with our kids through the years that when we call, oh, we're just checking in on you. It's like, why?
Like,
I'm fine. Click and
right,
hanging
right,
up type of thing.
right.
But the same thing sometimes happens with our parents, where whether they're busy or depending on their personality, they don't want to be checked in on. They
Mhm.
don't want to talk on the phone to you. I'm busy with other things. So it's good to be able to have that comfort to know,
Mhm.
okay, mom and or dad, they're okay,
Mhm.
but I'm not bothering them.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was comfort for us to feel like something is there to kind of check on him without us having to be around. And we have quite a wide family, and we wanted other people in the family to know he was okay. So it worked well for us to have a service that would just check on him daily, but without him having to contact us all the
Yeah.
time.
Mm. So that's really the premise of Check and Be. Walk us through a little bit about sort of how it works.
Yeah, so Check-in Bee sends a daily text message to your loved one. Um, and when you get that message, you've actually got 1 hour to check in. And if you don't check in within the hour, it's going to alert a pre-selected care circle by text message.
Mhm.
And if you don't check in immediately, you'll get a couple of reminder messages. So yeah, just to make sure that you're actually seeing them. And then if you don't check in within 10 minutes of that end time, your pre-selected care circle are then
Mhm.
alerted, and hopefully they'll check in on you and just make sure everything's okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
It just seems like a good trade-off for I know we have so many people in our community whose parents they want to be so independent.
Mhm.
They want to stay at home. They don't want to live with you, or they don't want to live in independent living, or whatever it may be.
Mhm.
But that gives them the independence of still being on their own, so to speak,
Mhm.
but we know that they're okay.
Yes, yeah, I think it's that peace of mind, and like you were kind of saying, we're in a time where more people want to live independently, more people don't want to end up in a home ideally, and I think with my father-in-law especially, he didn't see that he was getting older. Maybe his memory was declining a bit,
Mhm.
physically unable to do some things, and yeah, there's that not visibility from his
Mhm.
side in seeing what was happening, and also we didn't want to, you know, tell him those things necessarily. We wanted him to feel like he was independent. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
So it sounds like this was really designed for those older adults who really are still out potentially driving and traveling, like you described your father-in-law, as well as potentially living by themselves or even with their spouse, but living by themselves, whether it's at a home, their own home or apartment, or even in an independent living situation where they are basically on their own as well.
yeah, definitely. I think it can work in all those situations. Yeah, where you're living alone, even predominantly living alone, but maybe with some family visiting,
Mhm.
because it's hard to check in every day, and even if family are visiting, there's a few days that might go by and no one's even spoken to you. So I think it's like a backup for those situations where maybe you don't have the family visiting often. So I think it fits in well with even
Mhm.
other kind of check-in care services.
Mhm.
Have you heard any good stories yet of how it's really helped people, especially the adult children, finding out that mom and dad are okay, or finding out that they're not, and oh, well, I'm so glad that this helped me.
Check-in Beat is fairly new. We've had some great feedback, and actually, one
Yeah.
thing I've noticed from people using the app is that it's not just people with parents that have used it. We've seen people who are traveling often,
Mm-hmm.
even younger people are using this. I heard of a truck driver who was using this as a way to kind of tell his family that he was okay all the time, and he was traveling a lot around the United States. And yeah, I think even situations where you've got someone in the family who's traveling a lot, I think this helps a lot. We've spoken to people who work in airlines as a way for them to kind of have some kind of check-in daily. Yeah, and even college kids who've gone off to college.
Sure.
Right, where you don't necessarily want mom or dad, or I mean, even with your parents too, using Find My iPhone to know where they are at all times,
Exactly.
or those kinds of things to make sure they're okay. Because
Yeah,
do that with our parents too. Find My iPhone and make sure you have tabs on them. So it's really, I guess, the idea of creating independence, but also still letting your loved ones know that you're okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think going back to what you're saying about the kind of tracking side of this, I think we're very clear with everyone about what data we keep. We don't track locations. We don't track where you are. This is simply a text message sent to your phone. So I think people understand that it's not, we're not really keeping tabs of you. We're not watching your every movement.
Yeah.
And I think that appeals to people who don't want that sort of tracking, especially younger people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But even some older people. But my dad calls me every morning, and I know exactly when, because he goes down to breakfast at a certain time, and I know by about this time he should call me, and sometimes he doesn't. And truthfully, when he doesn't call me, I'm like, hope everything's okay,
right?
And I give it some time, but then I'll call him, and I'll just make sure. But if you had that peace of mind, and especially luckily Kim and I work at home, but if I was in an office and super busy, I didn't have time to call him.
It's my mom's case where she forgets to take her phone sometimes with her down to play ping pong or go to play canasta or whatever. She doesn't always have her phone with her. So that could be, you have to, I guess, get them in the habit. So I guess in some ways, this is definitely designed for somebody who is savvy enough, if you will, or comfortable enough being able to answer a text message.
Yes.
And be able to respond. Right. So is that kind of that, I guess, is that the really in some ways the only caveat, if you will, is that as long as you have somebody who's comfortable with their smartphone or whatever kind of phone that they have and comfortable receiving a text message and replying to that text message.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it definitely suits more to some people than others. There are check-in services out there that do the phone calls. And I think some people like having the phone call. People aren't used to text messaging, but I think some people who are used to sending text message or receiving a text message from family are quite happy to just respond. And all we need is a short response to just check in each day.
Gotcha.
But we do understand that, this may be suitable for some people more than others.
Sure. But like for your father-in-law, it sounds like he didn't want to have to talk to people every day or didn't want to feel like I was being checked on. So this was the compromise, I guess, in some ways for your family.
Yeah, it was definitely. Yeah. I think he doesn't want to talk to people every day. He'd like just a really quick way of checking in. The days he does want to talk to someone more, he can still do that. He can still reach out to us. We still speak to him. So it's not replaced that. It's just augmented it, I think, with this kind of check-in between those times.
Yeah.
And it's one time a day, or can you set it up to be multiple times?
So it currently works on one time a day. We are looking into options for setting up multiple check-ins a day. We're still working out kind of what the best amount of check-ins is, really, because I think it can get too much. And but I think we're going to bring out options for checking in multiple times a day. And I think we're also going to look at options for other types of, instead of just text message, we might look into things like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger. Just give people more options of how to check in each day if they want to.
Gotcha.
Again, whatever it takes just to give the adult children or their loved ones the peace of mind knowing everything is okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Adam, thank you so much. You're helping lots of people, and we love hearing what you're doing.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Again, like he said,
there's that balance.
There's
right?
a balance
of
because
like,
some people don't want to be bothered that much, and some people are like, well, sure, my dad loves to talk all the time,
right?
But sometimes he gets busy, and like, Dad, are you okay? Well, yeah.
Or if we're traveling, or we're out of town, right? Yeah. So it's that peace of mind for both the adult child can feel comfortable that they're fine, and that they hopefully don't feel that we're being too intrusive at the same time.
Everything's okay. Hey, if there's any other topic you'd like us to discuss, please let us know. Parenting aging parents.